All right, welcome to Community Focus here on Channel 6 TV. This is Kenny Fogle. Glad you could join us today. And we're going to have a special guest in the studios. We're going to branch out a little bit from Nelson County and go a little bit statewide, as we got the Auditor of Public Accounts, or better known as the State Auditor, Adam Edelen, here with us today. Adam, first of all, welcome to the show today.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, before we even go into a whole lot of what we're going to talk about today, what is a Auditor of Public Accounts do?
Well, I'm the taxpayer watchdog. It's my job to make sure that every dime we spend as taxpayers is invested with efficiency, with effectiveness, and above all with integrity. So it's my job to be sort of the anti-corruption sheriff, and we conduct financial reviews and audits of every state agency and every county government every year. So we track literally tens of billions of dollars in taxpayer money every year and make determinations about how it can be spent more effectively, efficiently, and above all with integrity.
What's the best quality for that job? Is it somebody that's got a mathematician mind, or somebody what?
I really think it's courage. I think you've got to have the courage to take on the powerful to do this job well. And we have really talented people who work for us in the auditor's office who are folks of commitment and education, and they're credentialed. But you really do have to have the courage to go in and ask the difficult questions and conduct the difficult investigations, which is something I think I have a record of doing.
Well, that was a question I was waiting on later on down the line. I was going to ask, but I'll go ahead and say right now. I mean, you're a politician, obviously, because you're working in the world of politics. But you stepped on a tremendous amount of toes. Is that a smart thing for a politician to do?
Well, it's the smart thing to do as the taxpayer watchdog. Right. And I'm a big believer that you do your job and you let everything else kind of fall in place. But we've done big things. You know, I'm the first auditor ever to get involved in how we spend our education dollars. And in a school district in northern Kentucky, we caught the former superintendent in a school district with fewer than 1,000 kids, 90% of whom are on free and reduced lunch. We caught him stealing $500,000. And the good news is he's going to the federal penitentiary and is paying that back with interest. But you've got to have the courage to do the things that we need to do. And education is so important, Kenny, because it's the silver bullet. You know, if we want our kids to be able to compete in a global economy, they've got to be able to get all the resources to the classroom so they have a fighting chance. And that's been a big focus of my effort. And we've done big things with special taxing districts.
That's what I was going to ask you about, the special taxing districts. I know when you first come in, as one of your first focuses. Is that something you're still working on?
It is. You know, in Kentucky, a special taxing district is an entity that's unelected but has the ability to fee and tax you. And in most communities, like this one, they do really important work. But the fact of the matter is, we didn't know how many there were in Kentucky. We didn't know how much taxpayer money floated through the system. And what we found after an enormous investigation by my office was that it's about a $2.7 billion layer of government. And far too many of them weren't tracking the tax money like they should have. So we built a system in place. We determined that there were nearly 1,800 of these special taxing districts, and now they have to report who they are and how they operate and how much money they fee, tax, spend, and hold in reserves every year. And that won the National Excellence and Accountability Award. So what we did was we proved that Kentucky, even in a state where we've got a political culture that I think has been too tolerant of corruption in the past, we made Kentucky a national leader in this very important area, because it really does reflect an enormous layer of government that we didn't track like we should have before I came along.
Okay, well, I know your background. You've done a lot of things. Obviously, you was in Homeland Security for a while. You worked for the Chief of Staff for the Governor for a while. But getting into Auditor of Public Accounts, obviously, there's some reason you'd want to be in that particular area rather than choosing some other area to be in, because it's what is it that attracts you to that job?
Well, I think the taxpayer watchdog is the best down ballot job in America, because you have to understand, I get to fight the twin challenges to prosperity in Kentucky. The first is a political culture that has been too tolerant of corruption and a culture of low expectations. The other is, candidly, we're a poor state that doesn't always have the resources we want to invest in people, whether it be the greatest generation having the right to age and dignity, or the kids that we're trying to make sure get a quality education. I get to attack those things that waste tax dollars so we can invest them in what we really ought to be investing them in.
Well, you mentioned lack of resources, and obviously you've got a limited staff because you can't do everything. How do you pick and choose what to go after? I mean, there's 120 counties, 120 governments, there's all these tax districts, and only one of you and a small staff.
Keep in mind, we do 600 statutorily required audits a year. That's every agency of county, every agency of state government, and every county government every year. We oversee the process for evaluating their financial stewardship. But beyond that, we do a lot of special investigations. And what we tend to focus on are the big things that will have impact and communicate statewide a better way of doing things. It's one of the reasons why we worked in such a bipartisan manner with Commissioner Comer to hold former Commissioner of Agriculture Richie Farmer accountable for his misdeeds in office, because that was important, because we needed to communicate that while we're all precious, nobody's special, and nobody's above the law and nobody's beneath it. And we were able to do that. And of course, he's in prison now and making some restitution for what he took during his tenure. But we demonstrated that by working together, you can do very big things.
Well, I think you've already answered my next question. Is basically, is there anybody too big to go after?
No, absolutely not. As a matter of fact, I think that anybody who violates the public trust needs to understand that eventually I'm going to get them, and that's just the way it is.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, before we get out of here, I know that's a little bit about your job. Who's Adam Edelen?
Well, Adam Edelen is the son of twin boys who are going to be 10 next month. I can't believe they're 10 years old already, and we spend a lot of time together. My wife and I live on a small farm on the Fayette-Scott County line, and I'm someone who is passionate about the future of Kentucky. And it's not just because I'm a husband and a father. It's because I care so much about this state and think that we have an enormous level of potential that we've not yet realized. And I like being someone who has the opportunity to make all of Kentucky realize its potential, kind of like Bardstown has. I mean, we're in a community today that's been named the most beautiful small town in America. We ought to try to make every place in Kentucky be like Bardstown, a place of unlimited potential. And I think we can do it, but we've got to have different kinds of political leaders in place who are people of courage and commitment and who are committed to doing big things.
Well, you hear people, one of the things people might say is, hey, he's just a Frankfort guy. But you didn't start out in Frankfort. I mean, you started out in a small town.
No, I did. My dad and my whole family's from Meade County. My dad still farms there and is a heck of a good man. My whole family was there. We're a farm family. And growing up, this was kind of our destination point. My grandmother would bring us to Bardstown every year, and we'd stay and eat at the old Talbot Inn, and I'd get to go upstairs and see Jesse James's bullet holes in the wall, and then we'd go and go to the drama, which is something I always enjoyed, and then the counter at the drugstore had a great milkshake when I was a boy. I don't know if it's still there.
It's still there.
That's great. And then of course we'd be at Mass at St. Joe's Cathedral. And I think I remember St. Joe's before it had air conditioning. So in July or August, it would be about the hottest place you could be. But I have a long affiliation with Nelson County and Bardstown and really do love this community. I'm proud to be here, and I'm proud to have worked for it as Chief of Staff to the Governor, working with Mayor Heaton to get the sidewalk money that I think has been a significant contributor to making downtown Bardstown be what it ought to be, which is the most beautiful small town in America.
And you worked years ago, I believe, with Mike Hayden
from
Springfield. This is a part of the Springfield area.
Absolutely. So this whole area, and the thing I love about Washington and Nelson and Marion counties in this area is that there are more Edelens than there are Joneses. So nobody in this part of the country
grew up next door to an Edelen. So.
Yeah, nobody in this part of the country has any trouble pronouncing my last name.
That's true. That's true. Well, I know we've answered pretty much everything right now, but if there's any one thing you wanted to leave with the voters before Election Day, what would you want to say?
It's that there are things in politics that are far more important than partisan politics. And this is a job where you really need to have somebody who knows what they're doing, who has a demonstrated record, A, of doing big things, and B, accomplishing those big things by working with people on both sides. And when you're in the business of making sure government runs more effective, more efficiently, and more honestly, it makes a lot of sense to build a lot of natural allies, and I've done that in my 4-year tenure as your taxpayer watchdog.
Sounds like a winner. All right, well, Adam, we do appreciate you being here today. We appreciate you tuning in. We'll be back with more community focus. It's Adam Edelen here with us today, Auditor of Public Accounts. So stick around. We've got a lot more to come here on Channel 6 TV. This is Kenny Fogle. We'll be right back.